Going on, everybody? Welcome back to our 4th episode this week. Wow, it's been a journey.
And it's only Tuesday.
Well, it will be Wednesday,
correct.
I suppose. But yeah.
Yeah.
Who's counting? Well, we have an episode for you coming up. I feel like it's the episode that you've been waiting for all week. We didn't know who we were going to get. We have 2 bachelorettes now. I don't know if you know this, but we were told that we were going to get the most angry person.
It's me.
She's livid.
I'm so pissed.
I suspect at this point, Rachel and Gabby seem very happy.
Probably happy.
We were happy to have you. We have a lot of questions. First, I just want to say thank you for coming.
Absolutely.
You came just from AFR. It was hard to watch. Very emotional. We got to find out about you and Clayton being together. I want this conversation to be fun. We want to get to know you more. We're going to have some tough questions, I assume. But hopefully this will be an opportunity for you to fully tell your story, how you got to be where you are right now with everything that happened and unfolded with your journey on Clayton's season. So
I appreciate that.
Are we ready to go?
Yeah, I'm ready.
And we are just big fans of you. I think
Thanks.
you as far as like just looking at how you handled yourself throughout the season, you were a fan favorite. You handled adversity very well, especially with Clayton. I mean, I guess we can just start there in terms of leading up to breakup number 1 with Clayton. Going into that night, because I feel like, that's people on both sides of the fence on that argument.
Totally.
From my perspective, I loved how you handled yourself in that moment. I don't know. I tweeted at the time that I thought Clayton was being a dick.
Thank you.
I actually heard it went on longer than we got to saw, and was a little even more intense than what we got to saw.
Yeah.
And I think tonight, having you confront Clayton, it was really empowering to see you articulate your feelings so well. I feel like a lot of women related to like that feeling that you had of him kind of turning on you and you kind of saw a different person. Yeah, but I loved it too, because there's so many conversations, with The Bachelor and, well, you know what you signed up for.
Totally.
And then having been in in those shoes, I always tell people, you don't know what you signed up for until you're like in it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
But whatever, you have the right to feel how you feel, and Clayton had the right to feel how he felt about sex and dating.
Yeah.
I'm always of the opinion that the Bachelor or the Bachelorette is in a position of power, and when you're talking about upfront expectations when it comes to sex and dating, and that if anyone, sure, would you have avoided that confrontation had you, prior to that date, set that up for an expectation with Clayton as he wanted you to do? Sure, but my opinion was that the lead, it's more on them, since they're the ones who are kind of in control to like check in. But I guess my question to you is, were you anticipating, like, what was your goal of that conversation? Mm-hmm. You were the last one, last fantasy suite.
Yeah.
You got to see Gabby and Rachel come in. You obviously planned on talking about it, but what was your expectation going into that conversation? Did you think there's a good chance you might break up? Did you kind of tell yourself, I think he might have slept with at least one of them? What was your thought process there?
Yeah, that's a great question. And also, I feel like I have to say thank you. Like, when you tweeted that out, like, obviously I'm with Clayton, and I don't think we were like physically together, but at first he was like, what the heck? And I'm like, but you were. Like, you kind of were. And we can laugh about it now. And also, especially, I kind of want to like preface this whole thing with like, especially now that Gabby and Rachel are the Bachelorette, I'm like, it's 4 months post everything, hindsight's 2020. I'm glad everyone's happy, and I can be candid and like happy now, because if not, this would be really hard. But to answer your question, yeah, I came to terms with whichever direction that conversation was going to go. I was like very much just trying to be level-headed. Like, I know how I feel. If he's in love with somebody else, I don't want to share his love. And I kind of thought he was. I went into that week under the assumption that I just don't think it's me. Like, I can see the way he looks at Rachel. I can see the way he looks at Gabby. Like, and I know them. And it is hard. It's hard not to be in your head. It's hard not to think about those relationships developing separately and wondering if what you have is equally special. And so I kind of just knew at that point, I was like, I want Clayton to either know or I'm not really willing to put myself through this anymore. Like, that's where I was at. And I even felt, I was like, and if he does know that it's me and he's taking these relationships to the next level, then like, that's not what I want. Because yeah, like you said, he is in a position of power and he has an opportunity to protect me, protect our future relationship. If it's me that he sees, then yeah, show me that. And I do realize now, like, every single one of us had a different opinion about fantasy suites. And Gabby and I knew that we felt different about it, actually. So, and she has, respected my opinions this whole journey. And even after the show, we've talked and she's like, it's great that we feel different. We're different people. But yeah, I came to terms with whatever the outcome was of that conversation. You can't help but order you're in when it comes to fantasy suites. And obviously I wish I'd had that conversation before, but I also just, I didn't even think that I would have to. Like, I was like, if he's my person, like, we're gonna be on the same page and it's all gonna be good. And if I'm not, then like, he's found that with somebody else and I'm happy for him. And neither of those were true. Like, it couldn't have gone more different.
What did we not get to see?
That's a good question. Well, we sat there for a long time, both of us. I would say Clayton as well. I could tell that, I wouldn't say empathetic, but I think that he was sitting there and I could see the panic and I could feel the panic in myself. And I was like, oh shit, like this is not what I expected. And I could just feel this energy coming from him. I could see it on his face, this realization, like that he made this assumption and that he had no clue. Like I felt like he was like maybe naive in the moment to think that this would be a conversation that would come up about fantasy suites. And I think we were both naive, if I'm being honest, in that moment. So yeah, we did sit there for a long time and we went back and forth and Clayton asked me, what is it about me becoming physically intimate that, is hurt or, you can't get past?
Were you surprised by that question?
I guess I had thought about it, but in the context, yeah, I was. I think I was. I was like,
kind of, what do you mean? What do I mean?
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
what I would have asked.
Yeah, I guess so.
Our biggest criticism of Clayton has been in just watching it back. And we had him on our podcast. I've talked to him a little bit offline. He seems like a really nice, well-intentioned guy.
Totally. I can vouch.
That being said, if I tried to understand and explain to anyone who had no opinion of Clayton or not, it's just that, and we talked about this with Allie, it's that he seemed to take being the bachelor so literally. And it was like, I'm the bachelor, I get to be the bachelor, and this is like the only expectation he seemed to have of the women is, you know what you signed up for type of thing. And it's like, even hearing you say that was his question to you is like, well, what about me hooking up with the people bothers you? Like,
right.
Listen, we're in a world where hookup culture exists.
Yeah.
People aren't as conservative with sex, but like just that question almost sounds like, why can't you empathize and understand with Susie without even having to ask?
Yeah.
And is that what you were wondering and thinking? Because I'm just wondering that when you mentioned that.
Yeah, I think that's super fair. And I remember thinking, I was like, I see your perspective. I see it more than I thought I would have, because he genuinely did believe that he was in love with all three of us. And I think the best way to say that is deep feelings. And he probably had the feelings that you get when you're falling in love. But that's a feeling where this is where like my rational brain comes in, and Clayton gets so frustrated with my rational side, but he loves it too. And he's like, I appreciate it. He's like, I always wanted a rational woman. He's like, you're too rational. Like, but that's where my rational brain comes in. I'm like, yeah, I love, maybe it starts with the feeling and parts of it it's feeling, but like, I was always taught by my mom, she's like, love is a choice. It's an active choice. You nurture it, you grow it, you protect it. And Gabby even said something similar to that. You know, when you take on love, you accept responsibility for somebody. And that's been one of the biggest like growing moments for Clayton and myself, is like defining love and what that looks like through the whole process. But yeah, I mean, for me in that situation, I'm like, I can't get engaged to somebody who's in love with somebody else or who's been physically intimate with somebody else. And Clayton's perspective was, I can't get engaged to somebody who I've not explored that version of that portion of my relationship with. And both are valid. Both are totally valid. And he sees that now too. But when he was in that moment as the Bachelor, I think he saw the process and understood the process, and he had never seen a previous season, which I was like, oh, that was
mistake number one.
First mistake right there. But then on top of that, I think he told me this on our first one-on-one. He said, if you're a good person, you're going to be okay. And I thought it was such like sweet advice, but also maybe a little naive. And
it's almost like that was his problem.
Yeah.
He's genuinely, I swear, like, I know people are ripping us right now, but I'm like, I swear he is such a sweet, kind-hearted person in this crazy world right now.
I think he's very well-intentioned.
Totally.
I just think again, I don't mean to speak ill of your boyfriend, and I think I like the guy, and I want to be there to help him out if he ever wants my help, if he ever needs my help. But from where we stand now, it seems like he just has some maturing to do in that department when it comes to putting himself in other people's shoes.
Yeah.
And, you know, Clayton is a good-looking, athletic guy. He's relatively young, and it kind of almost comes across as someone who's like his whole life has easy street for the most part, you know? And like what? Because how do you become a well-intentioned person who seems to struggle so much in the moment to say, let me put myself in their shoes for a moment before having to ask? Because I do think it's almost like he thought, as long as I have the best intentions, everything will be okay, kind of like you said. And that's not going to happen if you have different agendas and different points of view and come from different walks of life.
Right.
You're going to run into like obstacles
for sure.
and challenges. And it seems like it's interesting to hear you say that, because I feel like that explains a lot. If you haven't been listening to Janet Jackson's Even the Rich episode, well, you are missing out. From Wondering, Even the Rich pulls back the curtains on the lives of the rich and famous and takes a peek at the wild world of celebrity. In an all-new season, hosts Brooke and Arisha are telling the story of Janet Jackson. She was such a huge celebrity. She's still a pretty big name, but after that Nipplegate appearance in the Super Bowl, she got all the blame. Everyone else was involved. Nope, it was fine. And all the blame went on Janet Jackson. Janet Jackson was torn to shreds by the media, setting an unfortunate trend for the way many female celebrities in the 2000s were treated. Who was to blame for this mishap? Even the Rich has the whole story. It's really interesting. You should. I'm really enjoying it. Oof, it's good. Listen to Even the Rich and The Rich Daily on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, or you can listen ad-free by joining Wondery Plus in the Wondery app.
The one thing that has really surprised me, because this is one of the questions I constantly ask Clayton, and we laugh about it now because it got lost in translation on the show. But I asked him this question of like, how do you handle adversity? Like, we're in this bubble right now. We're in this perfect bubble. We have these great dates. What's going to happen when like shit hits the fan? Like, who are you in those moments? That's important to me. He's like one of 3 boys. Like, he grew up around boys. He grew up in football and in that, like, I guess that environment. And he hasn't, I don't know how long it's been since he's had a girlfriend. I think it's like been 5 years or something. And I'm like, sometimes I'm like, maybe you should have like brushed up on some of like your, like being more fine-tuned to that like emotional side. And I think maybe that's where some of that growth has to come. Like, I would never say Clayton's like had it super easy, because now like knowing his heart and knowing like his darkest stuff, I'm like, oh, like he's been through some serious stuff, and he has worked through it. But yeah, being a little bit more in tune with that emotional side, I think, is maybe more what we're seeing, and like where he has grown. And like even with me as his girlfriend now, I'm like, we're going to do some learning today.
Open your textbook.
Yeah.
When Clayton told you that he was in love with you on the first breakup date, it almost seemed like from our point of view that you seem kind of caught off guard.
Totally.
You've watched the show before, yeah?
Yeah.
So you kind of knew this doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. Have you ever asked Clayton, what does love mean to him? Because it seems like he would say the word. From our standpoint now, we still really don't know what it means to him. He's said it to a lot of people. He never really articulated it with anyone.
Yeah.
You've been dating him for a while now. Like, have you had conversations with him and, about what it means to you? Like, what are those kind of conversations you've had with him since then to get a better understanding of, like, now that he says it, like, can you trust it? Because
right.
It might be harder to do.
Yeah, we've had a lot of conversations about love. And on the show, he asked his mom, he told his parents he was in love with 3 people, and they were like, not possible. You can't be in love with 3 people. And he asked his mom, well, what does it mean to you? And she said, love is like, you can't live without somebody. And that's a little dramatic for me. Like, I understand the sentiment. And I'm like, oh, that's like so beautiful. And like, that's probably how she feels about her husband. And like, I hope, I'm like, I hope to find that kind of love where somebody's like, oh, I can't see my life without you. That's great. But I also like we were talking earlier, I think that's where my brain is a little bit more like, it's not just a feeling. Like it's an action. It's a choice. It's much more than that. And like Clayton and I have talked a lot about that, because I'm like, it's not just about who makes you feel the happiest. It's not just about who brings you joy. And he's also learned that as well, that love takes, it takes nurturing, it takes action. And I think for him, like right now, maybe he does. I know he's like, I can't imagine my life without you. Like he has that big, passionate, like overwhelming love for me, and I feel it, and I feel it in his actions, and I feel it in the way he treats me and talks to me. But I can also say, like without a doubt, post show, we've been super open about everything, and it's like he has worried and thought about Gabby and Rachel and worried for them through this process. So I'm like, I think he had love for them as people, and he probably had those feelings that you get when you fall in love. And I think he's even said, he's like, I was so confused.
Yeah, I mean,
super confused.
I think he confused what it meant to be in love versus like having chemistry or a connection or a bond, which I don't doubt he had those with all 3 women. It was just, to me, it seemed like a 16-year-old version of falling in love for the first time, where it was like, I guess if I were 16 and I met multiple people, I'd probably be like, I think I love them all. And like that was the enduring version of trying to explain.
Yeah.
And I think, when you're the Bachelor, it's become a tougher and tougher gig in terms of expectations that come with it. But
impossible.
Yeah, it's tough. A couple things I want to talk to you about. I want to give you the option to pick in which order.
Okay.
I'd love to have you walk us through like that timeline between when you left Iceland to when you DM'd and go from there. And then I want to talk a little bit about AFR and the conversations that Rachel and Gabby had with Clayton. Which one do you want to do first? One's fun and one's not so fun.
Will we end on a fun note?
Sure, you can.
Okay. Okay. As long as we can end on a fun note. Let's talk. We'll talk about the timeline first, and then we can talk about those conversations because they were, applaudable and important. So let's do the fun one first.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you slid into Clayton's DMs.
Slid right in.
How long? You're very likable.
Oh, thanks. It's the line.
How much time had passed?
Okay, so I got my phone back, called my parents, DM'd Clayton. I was in the Newark airport. But I should have said this tonight because, people want to know.
Didn't. We want the exclusive.
You got the scoop.
Yeah.
So I didn't DM him with the intention of starting a relationship, but I was like, are you okay? And I will respect your boundaries, whatever they are. But if you want to have one more candid conversation, here's my phone number. Give me a call. And that night he called me and we talked for like 5 hours, and we were like, we joke and we're like, we were comparing notes.
So
Sure,
this was like the day you got back then.
Yeah, the day I got
right
back.
away.
Yeah, I wasn't mad at Clayton. I was never mad at Clayton for like anything ever, because I was like, I do not envy your position. I don't know that I could have done better. I totally
I
understand.
think you could have done better.
Well, you never know.
I know.
I don't know.
I know.
But you know, I don't know. It's like I knew at the end of the day, leaving Iceland, I was like, you're a good person. And I guess to also like follow up your other question with like what we didn't see was like, Clayton has mentioned this before, because I was so set in my ways on the night that we first broke up, when we both go our separate ways, you get in your head, you have conversations, and, you throw out what you're thinking. And one of the things was, does she just want to be the next Bachelorette? Did she just come here to get famous and didn't care about, like, disregarding my feelings? He got that in his head, and he believed it. And that's where that flip switched. So, because I was like, what the hell happened out there, And we weren't able to have...
When he got mad and he flipped.
Yeah. And so, like, that's why a big part of me leaving Iceland alone, I was like, this is for me. Like, I don't know what you're going to do, but I'm going to take care of myself and get out of here while I can. And I felt horrible. It was not an easy decision. I knew I was going to make that decision, but it felt horrible. So, yeah, when I reached out to him, I was just like, hey, like, we haven't really had the capacity, the time, the environment to really put things out there. And like for you to be able to tell me what happened that night, was that normal? Is that what it's like if we fight, or if you're to have a fight with somebody in an argument? But we were able to really like get to the bottom of that and be like, okay, this is what you understood to be your truth in that moment. And not that it warrants the way he treated me, but I have grace for like that mentality of like he genuinely was like, you obviously just don't care about me. And yeah, and I think he thought that was going to be a moment of like I'm taking back control of like my love story. I'm not going to let you hurt me. And that was we both realized now it's like that couldn't be further from the truth. Like we both cared a lot about each other.
You think about the versions of The Bachelor versus The Bachelorette. Audience watches it differently. I can see Clayton's thought process of almost even thinking, I don't even think he was having kind of a, this is going to look good on TV moment, but I do think he thought, and if he did, it's human.
Yeah. But I don't think that was it. No. That's
but I do think he thought he was taking his power back. The show talks about who's here for the right reasons. It's the trope of the show, and so if Clayton thought that, he probably felt justified in his anger, and maybe didn't. It doesn't make it okay, no, but like it certainly explains and helps you understand the logic, I guess, a little bit more.
It gives perspective. Like once I really understood that as well, I was like, okay, I understand. I guess I get why you were so, it was like feeling heartbreak, betrayal. It probably felt, I don't know, if you're going through that and that high stakes of a situation, like it probably felt like the world was like crashing in on you. And he even had said, a couple weeks prior, when other people kind of got exposed for different issues in the house, and he's like, people are sabotaging my relationships. People people are straight up lying to my face. And like, he experienced so much like manipulation and betrayal on that journey that moment for him, he was like, the person I thought like I could trust, like he said, he's like, I thought I could trust you of everybody. Like you've never given me a reason to not trust you. And you of all people have like, had this switch. So when we were able to like get to the bottom of that, I was like, okay, I still didn't dive into a relationship, but I was like, okay, I've got context. I'm understanding a little bit more about your headspace.
Did you ask him? Because like from our perspective, when you had the fight before Fantasy Suites, you left.
Yeah.
And when he showed up again with a ring, felt very fast. So not only did he get over the fear that you weren't there for the right reasons or you wanted to be the bachelorette, he also got around what he had originally said of, I'm not going to get engaged to someone without being physically intimate with them. So did you ask him how, like, in 48 hours, multiple of those kind of rules had changed?
Right. He went to talk with Gabby and Rachel, and before he ever spoke with me, he had made that decision. He had expressed, like, hey, I'm going to be breaking up with these women because it's unfair to them at this point, but just, like, you know, the way things have to happen. I came to meet him again when I was in Iceland, not with the intention of restarting a relationship.
So before he broke up with Gabby and Rachel, before you ever spoke to him?
No. But he has, you know, written that in his journal. Like, it was, we literally have, like, shown each other journals. But yeah, he's like, I've made the decision. Like, this is my decision. It's been made. And then he spoke with me, and then he broke up with the girls. But he had made that decision before even speaking to me, just because he knew where his heart was at, and he knew that was like the fairest, I guess, way to move forward at that point. And he did reiterate to me, he was like, this is not, like, he's like, I know you're going to feel the pressure, but this is not to pressure you into making any decision. And he did reiterate that. And even though I did feel pressure, but I was like, he also was like, I will respect whatever decision. Like, he came to full terms, like, I'm leaving here alone. Like, I might be leaving here alone, but, like, I'm going to do this the best way I know how to do. And it's not to leave with Gabby or Rachel, because that's not fair. And, he's told me, and, like, he's written it. I've seen it in his journal. Like, he really came to terms with, he's like, I might just be, like, leaving here alone. And that was all before he talked to me or spoke with Gabby and Rachel.
When you showed up for this proposal-ish, like, did you sense that he was going to try to propose or have a ring? I mean, you're wearing a white gown. What was, like, how did it all happen? When they're, like, were they like, put this on type of thing? Because you had already left the show, and then we weirdly met his parents, loved that you were just like, hey, maybe we should talk. I don't know. That was all just kind of weird. I don't put that fully on you guys, but, like, what happened that you got ready for the ball, quite literally. And and then what was your anticipation walking into that moment?
I didn't. Well, I knew the other two women were out of the equation. I was like, okay, he has told me that he has sent them home. I didn't know. So I picked this dress out for an engagement prior in the week, and did not know that I was going to a rose ceremony or, like, an engagement type thing. And Clayton even, he will say, I'm going to say it now, like, he had the ring, but he's like, I had no intention of proposing unless you were going to say to me, like, you are the one. I have, like, you know, he's like, and he is very aware of that, where he's like, I did not go into that rose ceremony thinking that you were going to even take me back. He's like, I went in full on knowing, like, I'm probably leaving here alone today. And, he had the ring with him, but he didn't get down on one knee, didn't propose, but he did, you know, the ring did make an appearance. And he wasn't going to propose unless there was, like, that full circle moment of, like, and he wasn't expecting that, but he was ready. And he even says, like, now he's like, I'd get down on one knee tomorrow. I'm like, please don't. Let's give this a try.
Stay standing.
No, and we joke about it now. Like I say, like, we're 4 months past it, so, like, we can laugh at these moments now, but, like, we also realize the heaviness of, like, the situation for other people, but we are in a good place where we can laugh through those things.
So how'd you go from having an all-night conversation and comparing notes to
being together? Like,
what was that next step?
We talked for a long time, several weeks. We were going back and forth, phone calls. Every phone call, we were like, oh my gosh, what? Like, what? Just uncovering more stuff where we were just like, this is crazy. But also we talked a lot about, like, we didn't talk about becoming boyfriend and girlfriend on those phone calls. We talked about a lot of things, though, that would let us know, like, where our compatibility lies as far as, like, what we're looking for the future, what we're looking for in a partner. We had these, like, really deep conversations that we stayed on the phone for like 5 hours every night for weeks, just talking with no expectation, no, like, what is this? We didn't have that conversation over the phone.
I think there were people speculating that you guys could be together. There were people speculating about possibly you being the next bachelorette. Do you think that, and I know Gabby and Rachel are the next bachelorette, but do you think that it might have been an option for you if you were single? I'm just asking your opinion.
My opinion, I don't know. If it had been switched somehow, we know the way it happened with Gabby and Rachel.
No, let's say you just never DM'd.
I never DM'd.
You never
him?
DM'd Clayton.
Maybe they'd have a 3 bachelorette. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. Nobody ever talked to me about it, and there was no pressure to do anything after the show for me. Everybody, I was like, I'm on my own.
If they truly wanted you to be the bachelorette, they could have made it
impossible.
Well, difficult.
Totally.
For difficult. You guys to reconcile. Not impossible, but they could have. They didn't try to stop you guys from being together at all. It sounds like.
No.
And then I'm assuming after you guys are hanging out, it just kind of at what point? Who asked Sue to be boyfriend and girlfriend? Like did that conversation happen?
Yeah, I asked Clayton to be my boyfriend.
You did?
Yeah. Because after a certain point, we were like, okay, like, what are we doing? Are we going to pursue something? And we had this really great conversation where I opened up to Clayton about something I've really never shared publicly, about one of my biggest like insecurities and in a relationship, and like something I'm fearful of. And I was like, this is like what I'm afraid of. And I take it serious. Like I really opened up to him about something, and his response was just so genuine. And like in that moment, I was like, wow, like this man loves me. Like he really does. And I had this moment where I was like, it was just like a really big moment for us, in the way that he responded to me opening up about that, feeling where I was like, first of all, I've seen a lot of growth from him. I've seen him not just from the process, but like post show. Like I've seen him, like I've told him my needs. I've been like, hey, this is what I need if this is going to work. And like he has shown up in those ways. And like, yeah, that conversation was like a point for me where I was like, okay, like I think I want Clayton to be my boyfriend. So I was like, I always joke of like, I asked him, but like, I did. I was like, okay, so like, do you want to be my boyfriend? And we laughed about it. But it was, it was me that made that step.
Were you discussing the show as it was airing and as you were seeing these other perspectives that you'd never seen before? What role was that playing with like you and Clayton as you were recultivating this relationship in the real world?
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's a great question, and I want you to answer that. But also timeline-wise, because you said 4 months, were you guys boyfriend and girlfriend before it started airing?
Probably around that time we became.
So it was early on.
Yeah, it was like probably a month or so, or month and a half. I really don't remember.
Okay, and then now back to Amanda's question. Like as it started airing, specifically as things got intense, and then it's always like no matter whether you're engaged or not, right? It's hard to watch back. I mean, I've been.
Oh yeah.
It was hard for Vanessa when we were together. It's hard for anyone to watch these connections.
Oh yeah.
It's just how messy you knew it was messy.
Yeah.
And how much did Clayton tell you? Like, yeah. Well, look, go ahead and answer Amanda's question first.
Kind of like to encompass all of that. Like, I hope people know. Like, I knew what had happened. I knew what took place. One thing about Clayton is that he is transparent, and that can get him in trouble. But he, like I said, we sat down with our journals one day when we were just like, let's compare notes. Like, where was your head at here and stuff? And there were no surprises. Like, we really talked about everything. And he was like, I want to know, like, or I want to make sure before we become something, before we try to make this work, like, you need to know where I was at a different time, or you don't need to know. But he's like, if you want to know, you can know. And we did. We talked about all of those things. And so, like, there were no surprises. Like, I knew he had strong connections. He's like, you're going to see this back. And I knew that was going to take place. But I did watch the season back. But I also was like, I guess, it was better for me to be preoccupied during certain, episodes or certain things, even like the clock tower thing, like me being like, again, it comes back to me being on camera. I'm like, oh, it's really just hard to like watch this narrative play back in general, because you're like, it's just a hard thing to do. Watch yourself back, watch the person you love not only fall in love with you, but fall in love with other people. And it's a lot. Like, it really is. So it was better for me not to be like hyper focused on watching it. And so I had some watch parties with my girlfriends, and like we would just like laugh and have fun and like, hang out and whatever. And I was like, oh, I can't hear, but it was probably for the best. And then even like I pick up shifts at a restaurant occasionally, and like there were nights that I was scheduled to work or whatever, or one time I picked up on a Monday, and I was like, it's Bachelor Monday. I'm like, why did I do that? And then I'm like, they're working and they've got it on the corner, and I'm like, this is the best way for me to watch this.
Wait, you were waiting tables while The Bachelor was on in the background?
Yeah, people had no idea.
That's pretty great.
Yeah, it's like
wild choice by you, but
yeah,
pretty great. I don't know if anyone's ever done that.
Yeah, the restaurant there, I love where I work. It was a place that I used to hang out before I quit my corporate job last year, and when I quit, I got a job there part-time and to do everything else that I wanted to do. But yeah, they've been so supportive. They're like, yeah, Bachelor Mondays. Like, they put it on as it's airing in the restaurant, as I'm like, oh, you want more Hush Puppies?
In the bits that you did watch back, what was the one that was the hardest to watch, and what was the one that gave you the most joy to see?
Oh man, it was super hard to watch our night back when we first broke up. That was it was the hardest part that involved me, but then I'm going to say tonight was the hardest part to watch in general. Not just, watching him, the breakup with Gabby and Rachel, that broke my heart. And then, I got to see him on stage with them, and that also was it was hard to watch.
Did you get to see, well, that was one of my first questions. Did you see all of it?
I don't know if I was supposed to, but I did.
You got to see everything?
Yeah, I did. I don't know if I'm allowed to. Yeah, I did that on my phone.
Great.
Yeah. So I know what happened. I don't know if I was supposed to. They didn't play it for me on the TV.
I don't know if you were supposed to, but you're definitely allowed to say that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah. They can't really.
They can't take away your phone now.
I'm sneaky. Yeah.
That's your life.
Sorry. I can see their faces in there.
That has nothing to do with production.
Okay. Yeah, that was me.
So it must have been hard, obviously, to watch. We had a hard time. It was hard for us to understand a lot of things Clayton did.
Totally.
When I think Rachel's was really tough. I mean, we love Gabby. We thought she was iconic and how she handled everything.
Legend. Chef's kiss.
But I thought Clayton was going to pick Rachel the whole time. And then there was a moment where I was like, he might pick Susie. You seemed like it was like, 1A, 1B, but we saw this connection, and Rachel saw it too. It was really hard to hear him say that in the fantasy suite that he told Rachel that he has never said I love you to anyone else. And not only it's one thing to say it, but then you say that other kind of thing that really reaffirms those words to make it seem extra special, even though it already felt special. What was that like for you to hear back?
Oh, yeah. I mean, knowing it was sad. It was honestly just sad. Not for me, but, knowing that these other women, that was 4 months ago for all of us, but they have to rewatch this now. And the pain is still, or, I don't know if I want to say the pain is still there. I don't know. Maybe it is for them, but those feelings are real and valid. And it was hard to watch back because, Clayton didn't have his mind made up Fantasy Suite week. When he said, I love you the most to me, he wasn't going to share that with me. But in that moment, I think for him, he was like, I see my life with you. But he genuinely believed that he was in love with each woman. And him saying that, I think I hate to say it, but I feel like it comes back to him just thinking that I'm just, this is normal. I don't know how else to describe it. It's almost maybe a naive and maybe that's from either not watching previous seasons or just being in over his head. Like he is, and I don't want to throw him under the bus because like he should speak on this more than I should, but he has said, he's like, I wasn't over my head. I was so confused. And I don't think he realized in that moment the damage that could have and like what that could mean for somebody. So it was sad to watch back because like Rachel's incredible. She's one of the most wonderful, kind individuals I've ever met. And so, yeah, I mean, I imagine it was really tough for her.
Do you think Clayton has... we all need to improve. Like we're never ending projects, all of us. I don't care where you are in your stage of life. But it seems like Clayton, he's like in his late 20s. I think he has some I think, this is my personal opinion, he has some catching up to do maturity-wise because, again, we all know, you're not going to get a disagreement from me that he's a well-intentioned, means well, nice guy.
Yeah.
But it does seem concerning, I think, for a lot of people, and that's the biggest challenge people have. It's just like, it's the recklessness. And sometimes it's even scarier sometimes when people are well-intentioned.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like, well, shit, man, like...
Yeah.
It's
How
like,
can I be mad at you?
What's more dangerous? Like, kind of like it's naiveness and stupidity or just kind of evil intentions. And I don't think he has evil intentions.
No, not at all.
So it seems like he has a lot of growing up to do. Like, how would you respond to that?
Yeah, I think that's fair to an extent. I also think like we have to remember like the Bachelor world is freaking crazy. Like it is crazy. And if you've never seen a season, and he went into this just genuinely thinking, and that's where like I think like maybe I hate to say the word naive because Clayton's not naive. He's super smart, very intelligent. But like maybe the naivety to this environment really came into play. And it doesn't make any of his behavior like excusable. The things that were really hard to watch back. It's like he has a hard time. Like we have watched some of the episodes together, and you can just see like he's like, oh my gosh, like what have I done at different times? He like genuinely he realizes the destruction. He realizes the things that he did that hurt people, and he feels remorse. And like tonight he said, I've had 5 years of growth in 2 months, and he's said to me, he's like, I wish I didn't have to go through The Bachelor to get that. But him being thrown into that environment that really is so complex, and like me going in, I'm like, oh, like I've seen the show first of all, but also just knowing myself, I'm like, oh, I just know this about myself. Like that's who I am. Like, this is my understanding of who I am. And yeah, maybe he did come into the show with certain things not figured out. And I think he's learned a lot and he's figured a lot out, but...
What do you think he's learned? Has he articulated that to you?
Yeah, I think he's learned that when you... I think one of the biggest things that he has learned is when you are in a position of power, you hold, it sounds easy to say, but what is that phrase? It's like, is it
with great power comes great responsibility?
Yeah. It's like he was put in this position and like he really did, like he had a lot of responsibility, tons of emotions and people's hearts like in his hands. And I think he has really learned like the power that he held, and he has seen the destruction that came from that. And he is like very remorseful, and you can see like, and like I told you, like he was worried about Gabby Rachel and even Serene at different points. He was just like, even before episodes aired, he was just like, oh my gosh, like what have I done? Like he had this realization post show once he took himself out of the environment, and he was just like, I don't even, like he's even saying, he's like, I don't know what was going on at different times. And like he is aware. But he's done a lot of growing up, and he admits, and I'll say it too, I'm like, we got a long way to go, like and that's not just with like him, that's with, like you said, that's with everybody. We all have, a long way to go. But one thing I will say about him and our relationship is that he takes constructive criticism, and I give him a lot. I do. I just do. I'm like, dude, like if I'm telling you, I am. I'm telling you how I need to be loved and what I need from you. And he always takes action on it. Like that is, I've told my parents, I'm like, I've never given so much constructive criticism to a single boyfriend, but I've never, like he has taken it and he has put it into action more than any boyfriend I've ever had. Like he wants to grow and he wants to be a good partner. And that is more than I can say for a lot of men. And that's where like that good intention and that big heart comes in and you're just like, he is.
You see the potential.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Like 100%. And even like right now, like we are happy, but there is work to be done for sure. Like we both know that, we acknowledge that. But yeah, we're happy. We're having a lot of fun together right now. But
I mean, that's one thing we were talking about with Allie in our recap episode is that you had all the outs. It would have been very easy for you to not be with Clayton. And while some people might not agree with your decision and might not be supportive of your relationship, no one can fault you, and especially you, for, quote unquote, being there for the right reasons, so to speak, because it's for all the criticism Bachelor people get, their brand and Instagram followers and looking good, like you chose the path of most resistance.
Yeah, I'm ready. Yeah, I'm just gonna be honest. Like I knew it was not gonna be well received, and I've been telling Clayton from the start, I'm like, they are not gonna be happy for us. Like they're just not. Like the way it happened, I'm like, this is gonna be. I'm like, we could be the most hated couple in Bachelor Nation. We really could, and it's still possible. I've looked at the internet a little bit.
Don't.
Yeah, I'm gonna try not to. You're like, please don't. I've seen it.
I don't know if your boyfriend has told you that we've talked a few times, but he doesn't seem to be taking my advice when I tell him to not fucking read the internet.
Dude, oh my gosh, thank you. You've been on speakerphone a few times, and I always am applauding you in the background. I'm like, listen to Nick, dude. I'm like, he knows. And and today you talked to him, or yesterday. And you said, dude, you got to stay off. And he's like, I've only been on a couple times. And I looked at him, I was like, bruh. I was like, no, you are lying. I'm like, you don't lie about a lot, but you're lying about this. Because he doesn't want people to worry for him. But I'm like, Clayton, like, you got to get off because it is bad out there. And I know it's coming for me now. I'm sure it's out there now. I saw a few DMs like, I take back what I said. And I'm like, okay, good. I'm glad to hear it. Like, okay.
Yeah, you guys can't do that because if you want to make it work, it won't work if you guys are
invested in what people have to say.
Yeah, I mean, people aren't going to be rooting for you guys. And that I commend you for cheers.
Buckle up.
Solid's taking a drink. It's just Susie and Clayton against the world.
Yeah, I knew it was coming. I've been preparing for it. I mean, I'm not even gonna lie. Like that has been the overwhelming part of this for me because I'm like, wow, people are championing me. They're like, oh, good for you. But what I can say is that I was not afraid to walk away in Iceland. I'm not afraid to walk away right now. Like, I will be in whatever relationship or environment that is good for me, and I'm not afraid.
What would you say? Because, like, most of the people watch this. I mean, it's a very diverse audience, men and women, but it's majority women. And I think a lot of women felt empowered by Gabby. A lot of women related to Rachel.
Yeah.
I think you had a lot of amazing moments tonight, especially when you confronted Clayton, when you left. I think you also made a lot of women feel empowered. Mm-hmm. What would you say to your critics now?
Yeah.
Who might have said something to the effect like that, Tyra Banks, we were all rooting for you. and if a young woman or a lady or anyone says, you let me down, you stood up to Clayton and then you kind of threw it all away, what would you say to that person?
You know what? I respect that person because I don't think that they are like coming for me in with malintent of like, I don't think it's people trying to turn on me. But I think, what I would say to them is like, take those moments that maybe I inspired you to walk away from a bad situation. Take those moments and let that empower you. But also know there is more to this story that you will never know. And not that it makes everything okay the way that it happened. Like, just know it doesn't. Like, the way Clayton spoke to me that night, I told him, I'm like, I felt like a stray dog, that I wandered into your house and you're like, get out of here. That was not okay. But like, there is so much more that nobody will ever understand. And, I have to ask like that you have grace for him. But again, just know, like, I am not afraid. Like, I ruined the show. I turned down the final rose for the first time in history. I felt terrible. I was like, I'm literally ruining this show right now. Like, this man is here, like, confessing his love, like, whatever. And when you're there, you think it's the biggest thing in the world. It feels so freaking heavy. But I was like, bye. Because I'm not afraid to take myself out of a situation that no longer serves me. And I never have been. I never will be. And if Clayton and I break up, that's because it didn't work out for us. And whether it's he walked away, I walked away, I'm not afraid to do that. Like, coming out on stage and facing everybody after that was like the scariest part of it all. But take whatever inspired you from those moments and like allow that to empower you, because I was seeing the same thing that you guys were seeing, and I was like, this is not okay. And I was like, get me out of here. And I have answers. Clayton has, explained a lot more than people will ever understand. And don't let me getting back with Clayton uninspire you. And like, if you don't want to root for me, like, that's okay. But like, just know, like, I'm happy and I'm not going to stay in something that's not good for me. And if I do, my friends and family will like, they will have something to say about it. I get it though. I get
what
it.
Are your
They'll
parents thinking about all this?
Well, they know everything as well. And my parents know, like, I think I'm a really good girlfriend. I'm super sweet, totally understanding about everything always. Like, I'm like, as long as there's no lies, no cheating, and we want to make this work, like, I'm cool. I'm chilling. But they also know, like, I don't take BS at all. Like, that's why in my hometown, they're like, dude, like, if you get through her, like, you're good. Like, she's the toughest one. Like, I really am. And
it's very believable. I'm not worried about you at all.
Yeah.
Like, I believe that you're not scared. You have this kind of fight to you. Also, I love the jujitsu. I feel like if you wanted to, like, kill me, you probably could. It's very intimidating.
I'm sure.
We talked about you with Allie, you and Clayton. Yeah. And there was obviously criticism.
I get it.
Not you, more on your boyfriend.
Fair.
And one of our things we discussed was, well, I'm not worried about you at all. Because, like, again, you had all the outs.
Yeah.
But even if I were Clayton, I'm Clayton's friend, I would say to Clayton to his face, we do our Ask Nicks, we give relationship advice. I'd say my concern for you is that you need to make this work to validate your experience.
I've told him that too.
The pressure of the pressure of this relationship working, and I'm worried that as much as he might have grown, like he's like, I grew 5 years in 3 months, that like you can't cheat growth in terms of time sometimes. And that it seems like you might be the best thing for Clayton because you seem very self-aware and willing to, like, as you say, coach him up, and that's great. But like, are you ever worried about that? And it seems like you addressed that already.
Yeah, absolutely. I addressed that. I was super fearful. I was like, did you come back for me because you said you loved me the most and you were afraid of how that was going to look? And you're like, I have to choose her now. I talked about that. I've asked, we've had the conversation. I'm like, are you afraid of like looking like a failure if we don't end up together? Like, I don't want any of that. I don't want anything to stop. If a breakup is necessary on either end, I'm like, let it be. We all know. We saw tonight with Gabby and Rachel, like, whatever is meant to be will be, and that was meant for them. So like, they're good, they're happy, they're gonna go on, and like, that's gonna be amazing. So yeah, we've definitely talked about that, and I can say without a doubt, I mean, this is like an insight to a conversation that we had where I saw growth, and I think we realized, both of us, a little, like, we both had a really good realization. I had asked Clayton early on, like, I had asked him, I was like, if I never reached out, or if I reached out, but we never became something, would you still be friends with me? And he was honest and he was like, no, like, I couldn't be friends with you. I was not like, I would have thought, and he's like, and he says this, he's like, I think you would have like become the Bachelorette or whatever. And I'm like, hell no. But like, but he's like, I think like, you know, I would have been jaded. I would have thought that you played me and this and that. And I'm like, even watching this back, you would have thought that, like, you, and maybe we weren't at the point of watching it back at that point, but I was like, even after seeing everything, you still would have thought that. And like at that point, he was like, yeah, like, I don't think I could have been friends with you because I would have believed that you, like, I think I would have believed that you played me. And it was a couple weeks ago, I don't know, a month ago maybe, and he said to me, like, we were just chatting and he was like, I just want you to know, like, you do not have to stay with me through this. This is going to be brutal. People are not going to be happy for us. Like, people are going to be mad at you. And you, like, I don't expect you to stand with me through this. And he's like, and if you don't see a future with us together, he's like, this is your out, basically.
Run.
Yeah. And he was like, he's like, I can't thank you enough for what you've done for me. He's like, you have helped me so much as a person. Like, and I mean, I'll let him speak to like the things that we've like brainstormed and talked about and just like worked through as people, not even as like a relationship, but like for him. And he's like, I could never thank you enough for what you have done for me. And he's like, I would be your friend. Like, I will always like love you as a person before anything else. And I was like, that's a moment of growth, you know, like he had this, and it was just a candid conversation we had, but I was like, it was a moment for me where I was like, Clayton, you know, realizes that this is like bigger than just his love story, you know, like this is bigger than just, or not his love story, but our love story. But it was a moment of growth for me where I was like, it was just a really respectable moment where I was like, it meant a lot for me as a person as well, you know, outside of our relationship.
Well, it was nice to hear him kind of say that in terms of recognizing how challenging it might be and then giving you that.
Yeah, he was like,
you know,
I understand.
Because quite honestly, like that's a very, that's telling, because he could have easily been kind of in his desperation, like begging you to like, out of fears, please don't go, please don't bail on me now, I need you. I think a lot of weaker people would have guilted their partners into like staying, and that is an admirable quality for him to say. It might not, him trying to protect you, to saying this might not be what you signed up for. Yeah, that's a very thoughtful thing for him to do.
Yeah, it was a moment for me where I was like, that's where that good intention person aligned and met up with the growth that he has had. And I was like, that's where those two things have like intertwined, you know?
Susie, you've been so generous with your time. I really appreciate it, and so honest. I know it hasn't been easy. I want to ask what's next for you in Clayton, and I know you guys are going to be in Virginia, but I want to get a little bit more detail before we let you go. But before we do, for the people who are tuning in to listen to Susie, I'm sure there's a lot of new listeners. Thanks for listening. We appreciate. Subscribe. We do this thing called Ask Nick on Mondays, and we do all Bachelor and pop culture stuff a lot on Tuesday. On this is our Going Deeper episode. Most of the time we'll have our guest mediate a couple's fight with us. Right now they'd call in. It's late in the night. Susie's had a long night, so we're not going to put her through that. But we do have a mediation call. It's an intense call with a couple going through a very passionate fight. There's some infidelity with this one. So we're going to go ahead and play our mediation segment. You're not going to want to miss it, so stick around. And then after their mediation call, we're going to get our final thoughts from Susie. What's next for her? What's going on? How does she predict her future with Clayton? Does she see a future with him? If there is engagement, how long does she want to date? Like, now that you're in the real world, do you feel pressure? All those answers coming up after mediation.
I've tuned out of podcasts since being on the show because it's overwhelming to hear people discuss you and your dating life. That being said, prior to coming on the show, when I was in the thick of, out on the streets dating out there, and I was in a real dark place, like probably a year and a half ago, whatever. And this podcast, like when I would stress clean my apartment and my room, I would play these.
The Ask Nicks?
Oh, yeah. Oh, the Ask Nicks are so good. Like, I'm not.
Thank you, Susie.
I'm just being for real right now. It is so good. You guys are rational. I'm like, this appeals to my brain. This really appeals to me. And I've told Clayton this. When you called him a dick, I was like, hey, I'm just going to let you know I'm a fan of the podcast. And like sometimes Nick is very rational. And like you see both sides of things. And I like that because that's how I think I am. And yeah, Clayton has forgiven you, by the way. Just wanted to put that out
He
there.
told me.
Yeah.
He's like, I know I was really mad, but like I was like, anything I say on my show, I'll say to your face.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, he'll say it to your face too, dude.
Well, enjoy this mediation. Thank you, Susie, for the endorsement. Endorsement? I can't. It's
Anytime.
late. Thank you for the I can't. Anyways, enjoy this mediation, and we'll get all these last minute thoughts from Susie after the segment. How's it going, guys?
It's going.
It's
pretty
going.
good.
There's
Yeah.
a sigh. There's a
Lazy
sigh.
Monday.
Sigh. All right. What are your names?
Well, I'm Lauren. I am 28.
I'm
And
Blake. I am 25.
all right, you guys dating, married, co-op?
We are dating. So I think 5 years, but about 3.5 of those years were off and on. It was a rough ride between that time.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Those are rough. And what was one? Is it one person doing the breaking, or was it?
Yeah. I guess the best way to describe it was I was emotionally immature asshole having an identity crisis. So I was trying to navigate growing as myself. And I brought this mature woman into a relationship when I was not ready to be myself.
Are those your words, Blake?
My words, yeah. Looking back, I was a complete tool, I'll call it.
Okay. All right. You're back together now.
Yes.
Okay. What's going on now?
Yeah, so we're trying to rebuild a lot of that trust that was lost, mostly because of me, like I said. So we're in therapy, and it's going well, but we found now that we've been able to focus more on the relationship and not me just dipping out and, doing all the immature things, trying to navigate the actual issues at the relationship's foundation. And the biggest one I think that we found is communication. It's become comfortable, I'll say, to speak in a negative way to each other. It's kind of just like spur of the moment. We hear something, boom, we respond to it. So that's become like the norm. So being nice, as weird as it sounds, has become a little awkward, like being loving and emotional, especially for me after being so closed off for so many years. And that's created a lot of discrepancies and talking about issues and resolving them.
It just shows up in, like, when we do argue, that's why. It's like the miscommunication. Someone says something that, someone will take as rude, and then it just kind of spirals from there. Someone's like, well, you do this, or like, okay, well, you did that kind of thing.
Lauren, first of all, do you agree with everything Blake said?
Yes, pretty much,
Okay.
yes.
Then my other question for you is, it sounds like he did some things that really hurt you. And if you're like a lot of people, and I've been in your shoes before, when we're experiencing that hurt, regardless of how painful it is, sometimes all really want is them back. And so we're not really thinking about what they actually did to us. We just want them back. And then when we get them back, then the realization of how the pain affected us, then we start processing that, weirdly enough. Because now we don't have to focus our energy on getting them back. Now we have them back. And now your mind wanders into like, wait, what the fuck?
Oh, yeah, it's literally exactly it.
They did this to me? And oftentimes in relationships, my guess is part of the problem is you're trying to, and correct me if I'm wrong at any point, please, grapple.
Will do.
You're trying to figure out how to do that, and I'm guessing it's coming out in how you guys are communicating, some passive aggressiveness, just like maybe would it make sense? Have you responded to Blake in a way that sounded so short and cold and mean, and you thought to yourself, why the fuck am I talking to him this way?
Yeah, no, I mean that's what'll happen, because I mean that's literally what happens. Yeah, I want him back so much, and then a couple months in, I'd be like, wow, I'm like really hating him right now, like for seemingly no reason, like nothing happened in the moment, but I'll just be angry some days, and other days I'll be fine, but other days I'll feel like maybe something was triggered that day by a sarcastic remark, and then I'll just be mad. I'll be a little rude. I'll be a little passive aggressive. I'll also just straight up say some rude shit that shouldn't come out of my mouth. And then I feel
you're trying to hurt him.
Yeah, and I feel justified in it almost, because I'm like, well, I don't ever say this, but like, you did this.
You hurt me. Fuck you. I'm gonna hurt you back.
And I've tried to explain this before. It's like, I don't like that I'm doing it. Like, I know I'm doing it, and I hate that I'm doing it, but I just cannot stop doing it.
Yeah.
Like
no.
I don't know, and it pisses me off, and I get mad at myself, but then I'm mad at him.
You guys you're in couples therapy. Congratulations. That's awesome. Good for both of you.
Thank you.
I know it's
Thanks.
not what is, like, I'm assuming this is something you're talking about with your therapist, yeah?
Yeah. Trying.
Oh, and that's not going well?
Well, no, I wouldn't say it's not going well. It's just we have, so the issues are, widespread, right? So we kind of focus in on an issue, and then when it comes up, it's just so immediate, like our responses. So no matter how many times we practice or go over everything, we've been given as therapeutic homework, it still seems to happen, even though we've been trying to put in the work. But once we heard we were going to be on the Viall files, I fired the therapist. So totally kidding.
Okay, it's good, because I'm not a therapist. Thanks for your confidence. Clearly, whatever you did you cheat on her, or did you break up with her? You probably slept with some people while you're on a break. Either way, it hurt. Right?
Yeah, no, most of that is true. I think there was cheating, but it wasn't sleeping with someone. But during the breaks, like, there'd be points where I was dating somebody else a few days later.
There's some Lauren, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you completely and utterly trust Blake? And I feel like if you say 10, you'd be lying.
I definitely wouldn't say 10. I guess I would be at a 7, because I believe full-heartedly that he believes that he's not going to do anything. But he has blatantly, to my face, said, I will never do this thing to you again. And then within a couple of months, like, that thing will happen. And
so you don't know that. I think we always have to be very careful.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I get it. I get where you're at. And I believe that you want to believe it. It seems like Blake's at least man enough to he came on, and I don't want to give him too much credit. He did some shitty things, but good for him. Seems like the good version of Blake is that he's here with pure intentions, willing to face the consequences or the music, whatever, and truly trying to be contrite for his choices and fix what he can if you're willing to give him a shot.
100%.
But you don't know if he won't do this again, because he has. And you're better off, in my opinion, not an expert, I don't know what your therapist is going to say, of simply just being honest with yourself about that truth and your willingness to accept that risk to yourself. And that's a conversation you have with yourself. I don't think, I know Blake's here, but this is not an out for Blake to break your heart again, because he'd be a piece of shit.
Yeah.
100%.
But you just have to grapple with that, choice you're making. Every relation, I really strongly believe this, every relationship has its risks, some more than others. And you listen to my show, Laura, and people will call in and be like, I'm dating someone who's so much older or younger. I'm dating someone who lives across the world. This is my situation. This is my problem. And I don't sit there and tell people what they should do or judge them or whatever. It's just hey, assess your risk, really,
Right.
and knowing your risks you're going to have to approach it differently. You guys are in couples therapy. You're at least, to your guys' credit, actively being like, hey, we know some work that needs to be done. A lot of people in your position would just try to muscle through this and hope for the best. So you're a step in the right direction that you're not. But I think specifically for you, Lauren, you just have to acknowledge that, like, and be comfortable enough to say it to Blake. I want to say that you're a 10, but deep down, I don't, because I'm not crazy. And crazy would be saying, I know you're not going to do this when you've already said you're not going to do this and you did it. That would be crazy, and you don't think I'm crazy. So I'm just not there yet. And listen, even if Blake didn't do this, like, there's no guarantee that your relationship isn't going to end someday. I'm sure at some point, and I've been on your side, Lauren, my first relationship, you're just looking over your shoulder when the breakup's going to happen. You're just like, or when he's going to, fuck up or step out or whatever. And so I feel like you just got to get to a place where you're at least not doing that anymore. And it sounds like you're on your way. So I think I think that's one.
Yeah.
Like, you need to figure out, you need to work on, as a couple, I think, how do you guys keep improving that trust? Some of it is just going to take some time, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it is about really oversharing and communicating about a lot of things. I say this all the time, and I keep repeating this. My girlfriend, Natalie, before we started being exclusive, we were just like hooking up with each other for a period of time. Bit of a situationship. But we were very honest about what we were doing, not with each other. Not always fun to hear, not always fun to talk about, but we were honest.
Yeah.
And that honesty, be like, oh, well, if she can tell me about this, I know she's honest with me, because this is not a fun conversation to have, and vice versa. So sometimes I find that a way of building trust is to truly talk about, like, the things that aren't fun to talk about. To have a conversation with each other about, like, I did this. I did it to you. And I'm not talking about, like, don't cheat on her again to have this conversation.
Of course.
But I don't know, like, maybe, I don't know what it is. Hopefully it's very small things that, like, I think a lot of people in relationships that, like, well, I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to be mad.
Right.
So you guys, I hope that you guys are always being willing to have the conversations that might frustrate the both of you, right? Because I think a lot of people in your position will be afraid, especially you, Lauren, of, I don't want to make things rocky because then we'll just break up again. So I'm just going to, like, swallow it all. And you don't want to do that.
No, I've gotten to the point where I will very much state how I'm feeling and what I'm feeling and where it's coming from and what he did wrong, to a point where almost it's a little bit
mean,
a little bit toxic. Yeah. And, like, it's not always justified. I'll say, we had a fun example we want to give of how it happens if we have the time, but
yeah, no, go nuts. Yeah.
It's the passive aggressiveness on my part.
Yeah, and I think it's a good example. It's a little fun, but it also exemplifies, like, how we kind of communicate when there's negative or awkward emotions around. So we were watching the new Dexter series, actually, and one of the episodes is called Storm.
I hated the ending again. I hated the ending.
I haven't seen the last episode.
We haven't seen
Don't
the last
ruin it,
sorry.
please.
Okay, I'll shut up.
Wow.
So if you've been watching, then there's an episode called Storm of Fuck. So you know how they implemented, like, the title in the intro somewhere on the screen. So it came up, I kind of laughed, and I was like, Storm of Fuck, Lauren. That's what they call me in the bedroom. So, like, we laughed a little bit, and Lauren said, well, it's funny, right? Like, I thought it was pretty
but
clever.
you should know better. Where do you think her mind's going to go? She's, what do you mean by
Yeah,
that?
well...
What do you mean?
Yeah.
Who's they?
Well, see,
who's
it
calling
might be
you
a little,
that?
I did think that too.
You're so right. You are very correct. I love sarcasm.
I say stupid shit all the time, but you need to be a little extra careful.
No, I agree, definitely. And so Lauren claps back with, well, not that I would know. And, I kind of laughed. And then, like, 30 minutes later, it kind of, like, within me, I was like, wait, I'm Blake. Like, I'm a storm of fuck. Like, she can't say that about me. And I was like, well, like, I kind of was being passive aggressive, didn't bring up, like, the issue. because it felt awkward for me to just display my feelings and be like, hey, this upset me. Can we talk about this? It was more like passive aggressive, and then kind of how dare you say not that I would know. And I kind of skipped over how she felt and why she said that. And it turned into kind of both of us trying to explain our feelings, but emotions were so high at that time, we couldn't get to a conclusion. So it was kind of just bickering back and forth. So yeah, I mean, like you said earlier, I think that is the prime issue. Well, for me at least, is I'm fearful of showing myself and saying, hey, Lauren, I messed up. Because the great calamity, which I'll call it, the 3 years of off and on, bred a lot of insecurity within me, and I take that out on her sometimes.
What do you mean by that?
Insecure.
What do you mean?
So when she said, not that I would know, instead of, looking at it from a emotionally mature standpoint, there's a reason she said that, we need to discuss this. It was more oh, she's insulting me about my prowess in the bedroom. So I'm going to be passive aggressive instead of, actually confronting her, or not confronting, but discussing this with her.
So wait. If I'm hearing you right, and that's interesting because I'm assuming, Lauren, when you said that, you were like, I wouldn't know that because you're too busy fucking other girls.
Well,
what did you mean by that? Or were you in fact, because that's how I took it, where you're like, I wouldn't know that or were you literally trying to knock him down a peg for how he fucks?
So it was more so that I was trying to kind of put a little jab at him, because this is another thing, but during the week, he's doesn't really want to have sex as much as I do. And it really frustrates me, because I try to initiate, and it's just no. So I get my feelings a little hurt about that. And I make sure I let him know in a very passive aggressive way. There's a lot of little things.
Yeah. Well, you're not alone there. I think women need to back off in that department. I think if it's the patriarchy or whatever the fuck it is that has taught, society, there's a lot of toxic things that men have been taught and how they treat women. But I think one very toxic thing, and I think maybe on both sides, is this expectation that men are supposed to be ready to have sex whenever their female partners want it. As if we're, and this ability to get mad at them if they're too tired or whatever. I think it's a thing a lot of couples deal with, especially young couples, because it's it can be very emasculating for the guy. He's supposed to always be in the mood, et cetera, et cetera. So I definitely think that's, in general, that's something all women in heterosexual relationships should be mindful of, that yeah. And short of the first few weeks, or you're 19 or whatever, that you're not always gonna be in the mood, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And I think women often make the mistake of making it about them, and feeling rejected, and listen,
yeah,
Blake fucked up, because you would have the right to be what are you, fucking other chicks now? What's going on? And that's something you guys are gonna have to deal with. But in general, faithful men often get tired and don't want to have sex whenever you want, that's just a general thing. So yeah, if you were in fact, I mean, this, you definitely try not to mock his sexual prowess, even if he sounds like a little bit of a douchebag for saying that's me.
That's the thing. It's really.
I thought it was funny. Okay.
Really. And but that's kind of this. That's how it is. He's kind of sarcastic and dry sarcasm, which is funny when I'm in the mood for it. But if I'm not ready for it, in the mood for it, if I'm shocked by it, I usually always respond kind of poorly to dry sarcasm.
Well, I think you guys just need to be take it easy on yourselves. You're trying to you guys are trying to make this relationship work with a lot of hurt and pain. You both maybe need to heal. Certainly Lauren does. You guys are choosing to try to make this work with each other, and you have a shot, but don't be so, this isn't it for you. You choose to be together. You choose to make it work. You choose to get over. You choose to forgive. You choose to build your trust. But if not, life's not over. And I think that's for you, Lauren, something you need to really like recognize, even though you're in a relationship. I think, honestly, I think that makes relationships stronger. I don't have to be with you. I choose to be with you.
I agree. That makes a lot of sense.
It's okay to acknowledge when you're afraid. It's okay to acknowledge when you don't trust. Don't lie to yourself. Don't pretend that you're okay with things. Start there. Because what gives you anxiety is knowing there's a truth that you're trying to ignore. And it eats away at you.
It does.
You know?
It's stressful.
And that anxiety is your fear of what you know, and sometimes just naming it. I'm feeling, I don't know. I feel off. I'm afraid he's going to do this again. You know, just fucking name it. Stop pretending that he would never do this again. I don't know. How could you possibly say that?
Right. And you can't. So
maybe in a few years, you guys will build that trust. That's kind of like he truly has become a different person. But Blake feels, you know, honest enough to recognize that he's trying to be a better person, and maybe he's on the path to being a better person, but he's still on the journey, you know.
Right.
And you guys are still both pretty young, and you know, you guys want to now grow as individuals and as a couple, and hopefully when you guys get there, you'll still be in love.
I hope so. That'd be nice.
It would. But if not, Lauren, you'll be fine.
I'll be okay.
Promise. And we'll be here.
Amazing. Well, I'll call in to Ask Nick then and tell you all my issues when we break up.
I appreciate it.
Hey, Nick, remember me?
All right. It's a very empowering feeling to know you'll be okay.
It is. No, thank you so much.
All right. Take care, guys. Best of luck.
Thank you. You too.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
Bye.
Welcome back. Susie, so we want to wrap this up. What is next for you guys? How, like, do you guys feel any pressure? You joked earlier that Clayton was like, I'll get engaged to you right now, but I'm all about upfront expectations, as you know, listening to the Ask Nicks and talking about those things. So have you guys reset expectations in a timeline? He's moving out to Virginia Beach.
Yeah.
That's going to be intense.
Yeah.
How are you guys going to try to take this slow? Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to say it. I think you guys have a lot to learn about each other still. Every couple does. So how are you guys going to move in and temper expectations? And have you guys talked about any type of timelines or things like that?
Yeah. So not tomorrow, but the next day, we're flying back to Virginia Beach together. We're going to hang out for a couple of weeks. And then I'm shooting a wedding in California. And then I'm flying from California to Arizona. And so this will be like probably, it's like a month away-ish. And then we're going to do a road trip to Virginia. So we're really going all in. What we've kind of talked about for ourselves, like we genuinely have had a great time. We've had a lot of fun together. But we've also, it's been tough. It's tough doing this and watching this back. And like even tonight, like it was a tough show to watch. And you're right, we have a lot to learn about each other. And we have a lot to learn about ourselves still. I think we both are like still growing and learning from this. But I am fortunate that I was able to snag, I think it was a 9-month or 8-month lease in Virginia Beach. It'll end in September. And we've kind of said like, hey, let's get through the show. This is tough right now. Like not even on our relationship, but as individuals. Like I have seen Clayton he has struggled as a person. And I'm like, let's get through this together and let's do a 3-month post-show check-in on each other. Like obviously we can have that conversation whenever, but we're gonna be like, okay, let's give this some time. Let's have a check-in on each other and see where we're at. And then when my lease is up in September, like let's do another pulse check on this. And just like those are kind of like our points right now of like, let's like make a point to do a pulse check. Like neither of us are just dating for fun to just like have a chill relationship for a couple of years. Like we're like, let's see if this can work. Like let's talk realistically about this. And I don't plan to get engaged in September, if that's what you mean. And Clayton knows that. I'm like, like tonight when they joked about the ring, and I was like, we have talked about this. And I'm like, I've told Clayton, if you surprise me, I will say no. Like, this is not a fun surprise. And we can obviously laugh about it now, but that is like not something that we're talking about. And we have realized we're like, if we were to have gotten engaged, it wouldn't be for us. So we're like, let's not do it. It's not for us. So, yeah, we've got some pulse checks like coming up where we've set these like time frames just to have these real candid conversations with each other. But we want to give this a shot outside of this overwhelming environment. So that's the plan.
I think that's great. And I think Clayton's incredibly lucky to have you in his life. And I do say this, I'm glad he does have you, because while he maybe deserves a lot of this criticism, and he definitely fucked up, and he definitely was reckless, and there was collateral damage, all that is true, and he's going to take a beating. But this show obviously is a behemoth with its fans, and they can be irrationally cruel at times, and no one deserves, any type of harassment or death threats or things like that. And it can be a very dark place for people. And certainly it's going to be a challenge for Clayton. And I'm really glad that after getting to know you a little bit, that he has you in his life, because you seem like a very well-rounded person, very centered. And I think he will be all the better for it. And I want to say I am rooting for you guys.
Thank you.
I wish you guys nothing but the best. And I hope you keep coaching him up. Hopefully it doesn't get too exhausting. And it looks like you are happy, and if nothing else, I think that speaks volumes for with everything you guys have been through. So I want to thank you for taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you.
I know it's been a long night, and also thanks for the Ask Nick endorsement. That was
absolutely,
it's great.
Absolutely. And I know we're wrapping up, and I appreciate you saying that. Like, that means a lot. Like, I feel seen, I feel heard tonight. So thank you. And thank you for giving me this platform to share my experience. But I also have to say, like, I am lucky to have Clayton too. Like, I know that you're, and I know, like, he does. Like, we're like, he's a lot to grow and like learn from, and he has. But I'm like, I genuinely do feel lucky to have him too. And like, I would feel like a missed opportunity to like also give him credit where it's due. Like, he has been a rock for me in this as well, and he has really supported me and loved me through this as well. So I'm lucky to have him as lucky. I think is lucky. Maybe not. He might be a little luckier. I don't know.
Either way,
I wanted to plug him too. He's great.
I'm glad. I'm really happy for you guys, and I am rooting for you guys, and I wish you guys nothing but the best. And
thank
you. Thanks for listening, guys. Don't forget to send in those questions at asknick@castmedia.com, cast with a K. Subscribe, review, all that fun stuff. Listen to Susie. Check out our Ask Nick episodes if you're new to this show. We appreciate you listening. We'll be back on Monday for Ask Nick episodes. Chris Olsen for our Going Deeper episode on Wednesday. And next Tuesday, we will still be recapping. Well, not recapping. We're going to keep our Tuesday episodes. We'll finally have a break, but we're going to keep going. I don't know who our guest is going to be. We're going to have someone, maybe Serene, maybe, I don't know, someone. It'll be good. Listen, thanks. Bye.
Nice. Killed it.
Hey guys, thanks for watching, but before you go, make sure you like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you don't miss any future videos like our Monday's Ask Nick for your favorite relationship stories and advice, and our Tuesday Bachelor recaps. See you next time.